Hello, everyone. This is the 2022 North Lake Little League Coaches Training Session. I'm providing this as a virtual training for the upper level divisions, primarily juniors baseball and softball, majors baseball and softball, minors baseball, and AAA softball. Though I can also make this available as a resource for the younger divisions if you need to go back and gather information or if you're unable to attend the in-person training. This is Andy Pearson. I'm the coaches coordinator for North Lake Little League. I'm doing this session virtually, but if you have any questions, please email me at coaches@northlakell.org. So I'll jump right in. These are the things we're going to talk about today. We're going to go over our culture at North Lake Little League, why it's important, talk about how you get the season started. For those of you who are returning coaches, a lot of this is just a refresher. And then we'll go through some of the major league functions such as field, scheduling, safety, etc. And then we'll go into the individual rules for each division. We'll start with the coaching philosophy and the quote unquote golden rules for North Lake Little League. We strive as a league to be a developmental league and a fun league for the kids to play in. Of course, when you get into the older divisions, there are certain elements of competition that come into play, but we strive for equal playing time and development of all the kids in our league. So the pledge that we ask you to take is that you'll teach all the children to play fair and to do their best. You'll positively support all coaches and managers and players, respect the decisions of the umpires, and praise good effort despite of the outcome of the game. I won't read down all of the bullets on the right side, but really it's all about being positive and creating a fun and safe environment where really the goal for me as coaches coordinator is retention and minimizing attrition. And obviously baseball is not for all kids, and not all kids are going to make it from their age 5 year through their age 12 year or beyond, but really to keep as many kids in the league as possible, as long as possible, and allow them to continue to grow their skills in baseball and have fun and enjoy the game. So, these are kids. We want them to have fun. We want them to learn the game, and hopefully they'll keep playing throughout their Little League career. The number one thing that we want to avoid is being part of a headline. And it's almost every year, pretty much every year, that you'll see a headline from across the country where coaches, parents, fans get involved in some sort of scuffle. The most recent one that comes to mind is in 2019 in Colorado, when there was an actual physical brawl that was sparked because some parents disagreed with a call made by a 14-year-old umpire. This can't happen. We have in the past have had to ask certain coaches and umpires not to participate in games anymore. And we've had to ask parents and grandparents not to attend games anymore. So set your expectations early with your parents, and let's make sure that we don't make the headlines in North Lake Little League. As part of your training as a coach, you'll go through our partnership with Positive Coaching Alliance. You'll be asked to attend a 1-hour session with their professional PCA coaches. We have 2 sessions set up. One is on March 8th from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. for our drafted divisions. The other is March 23rd for our non-drafted divisions, also from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. If you can't attend the one that is assigned to you, you can attend the other one, no problem. We've just tried to structure the content of each of those for the particular divisions, but really you're going to get a lot of great content no matter which one you attend. And not to beat the dead horse here, but just to reiterate, you are a manager of 10 to 12 kids, and they look up to you, and they look to you as an expert, as a leader, as a motivator, all the things that a coach does. And it really does take a village to run a team. So make sure that you demand as much from your families as the league asks of you as a coach. We are a 100% volunteer organization, and we need parents to participate. We need you can't do it all on your own. I know I've tried in the past to do it all on my own. Luckily, I've been able to find a great core of coaches and parents and families that want to be involved. But please make sure that you get active participation from all the families that are part of your team. And if you're coaching T-ball or if you're coaching majors, there's going to be different things to teach. Just make sure that you continue to grow as your child moves through the levels. There are things that I know now as a majors coach that I definitely didn't know as a T-ball coach, that I didn't need to know as a T-ball coach, but allowing yourself to continue to grow and learn from the other coaches that have been there before is important. And as I mentioned, my number one goal as coaches coordinator is retention, and that's both players and coaches. So I want to make sure that you as coaches have all the tools that you need to make this a great season for the players and for yourself. I would like to have you come back and want to coach again as much as I want the players to come back and play again. So getting started in your season, there are a few forms that you are going to want to ask to have your teams fill out. These are all available in the North Lake Little League website. There's 3 forms, 2 of them which, actually all 3 of which you'll want to keep for yourself. Put them in a folder, in a binder, put them with your gear that you bring to and from practice and games. One is the medical release form, just basic information about kids. Make sure you know if a kid has an EpiPen or has diabetes, any other medical condition that you may want to be aware of, so that if something happens, you'll know what to do. The concussion information form, this is just for parents and kids to be aware of what the symptoms are of a concussion, what the causes are of a concussion. So make sure that they sign that, as well as the code of conduct form. Anybody that's going to be at games consistently, ask them to sign one of these and just put them on record so that they're aware of what the expectations are, especially if you're at a division which has umpires and keeps score and has winners at the end of a game, to make sure that everyone's just on the same page as far as what the expectations are. There's also an injury tracking form that you can find on our website. This is really just if you do have a kid that suffers an injury, and we don't need to know about cuts and bruises and scrapes, but anything that requires more medical attention, anything related to arm health or potential concussions, things like that, we would want you to report that to our safety officer. And I'll go into safety a little bit later in this presentation. So starting the season, every team should have a parent meeting. We could do this in person, you can do this virtually, but set aside at least 30 minutes where you're going to talk to your team and set the expectations. Make sure all of your parents are involved in some sort of form or fashion. I've got a checklist at the end of this presentation that you can use in terms of what the forms are and what the expected volunteer positions are. But make a sign-up sheet. Take a sign-up sheet, pass it around at the beginning of your parent meeting. If you do it virtually, you can do it some other ways. We do have ever-evolving rules and regulations around COVID, so we're still working through that, but right now it should be a lot less stringent than it was in the past. But make sure that you get volunteers And I've made a little checklist here for the volunteers that you need. Assistant coaches, at least 2 at every division. At T-ball, rookies, and the younger divisions, I highly recommend 4, 5, however many you can really get to help divide and conquer practices and games and make sure that everyone's being safe, and that everyone's getting the individual attention that they need in order to stay engaged. Identify a health and safety officer. This could be one of your assistant coaches or another parent that's willing to bring the first aid kit to and from every practice, that can bring ice, that can you know, manage all of the COVID requirements if there are any. But it's too much to ask of you as a head coach to do this. So to find somebody that's willing to take on that role, and it's not a big role, but it is important. Every division other than T-ball, rookies, and single-A softball will need an umpire, multiple umpires. I'll go over that later. That's one of the most difficult roles to fill, but you need to fill it. You'll need a scorekeeper and a pitch counter. Pitch counters for AAA baseball, minors baseball, majors baseball. Scorekeeper is for any division that keeps score, which we'll go over those rules a little bit later. Field maintenance, again, don't take it upon yourself to take care of all the field maintenance. Make sure that you have a group of people that will help with field preparations at Bastyr, Morelands, Forest Grin, and Logan Parks. Go over field maintenance a little bit later as well. Get somebody to help you with team fundraising, family fun day coordination. And then there's a few other things. Little League Day at the Mariners game, end of year celebration, team photographer, any of those things that you want to add a supplemental. We did cancel snacks last year, but if you wanted to bring snacks back this year, you could have a snack coordinator as well. In addition to getting volunteers, set yourself up a coaches meeting, either over coffee or drinks, whatever your preference is, and talk about how you run your team and what you want from the coaching staff. Identify what the roles are going to be for everyone, and then come up with a communication plan. Usually for me, it's a weekly email update on Sunday nights where this is what you can expect for the week. These are our games. These are our practices. Maybe let people know who's going to pitch this week so that they could maybe have extra family members in attendance to watch their player pitch. And then set up a team app, team manager, game changer, team snap, or a few games that are a few apps that are pretty common. And if you have any questions about any of those, I've used them all in the past. I'd be happy to answer them. So after you've kicked off your season, we'll start talking about schedule expectations a little bit. For the younger divisions, the roster should be developed right around middle of March. Registration still is open until around March 1st, and then maybe even a few others will trickle in after that. But you should receive your rosters around the middle of March, and practices could start shortly thereafter. Games will probably not start until right before or right after spring break. For AAA baseball, you should get your rosters around March 5th or 6th. You can plan on starting practices the week of March 7th, and you can expect 3 days per week. You can do 2 to 3 practices a week before the games start, and once the games start, you can expect a game every Wednesday and every Saturday, and 1 additional date for practices. Majors and minors, the teams have already been drafted. Practices will start March 1st. Games will start the week of March 21st. Majors will have games typically on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Minors will have games on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and then you can include practices on days that are convenient for you. There won't be any games during the week of spring break or Memorial Day weekend, but you can expect games and practices all other weeks with the seasons ending before school gets out. For softball, our VP of softball, Mike Spring, has provided this convenient table to let you know what's going to happen. The AAA majors and juniors will all get ready to start here again on March 1st. Single A and Double A will follow the same schedule from the prior slide and probably start activities around March 12th or so, with games starting at the dates identified there at the bottom. Single A, you can expect games on Saturdays and probably a practice on Tuesdays. Double A, you can have up to 2 games per week, typically Saturdays and Wednesdays. And then Triple A will have multiple games per week, as well as your practice days. Tournament of Champions for softball will be, the championship game will be on June 9th and the District 8 championship game on June 16th. TOC actually starts on May 23rd. Here's the All-Star dates. I won't go through them. I will go through All-Stars a little bit later in this presentation, though. Practices. If you've been coaching before, you have probably your own routine, but this is just some basic information for new coaches. Early in the season, you really want to focus on the fundamentals and the basic techniques: throwing, catching, hitting, basic fielding, and base running. If you're in a younger division, this is probably what your practice looks like pretty much every week. A sample practice plan on the right, do some stretching, warm up, set the expectations with the team, but that can take about 5 minutes. For the older divisions where you really want to warm up their arms and throw it out, recommend probably 15 minutes of warm ups every practice. And you're probably going to have an hour and a half practice versus the younger divisions, which will usually have about an hour. Again, divide and conquer, break into 3 to 4 stations, make sure that you have a coach that knows what they're doing at each station, and run through 8 to 10 minutes at each station. Keep them rotated, keep them interested so that they have different activities going on. And then I like to wrap up every practice with some sort of fun team activity, but that's entirely up to you. I have some ideas there. If you're interested, you can email me. Have a practice plan. I spend a little bit of time every Sunday coming up with what the practice plans look like for the week. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, but just come up with something so that you can let your coaches know what they're going to do when they get there. There are a bunch of YouTube videos out there that you can use for practice plans. You can send links out to your assistant coaches and ask them to watch a 3-minute YouTube video and say, this is what I'd like you to do. I have some videos that I've shared later on in this presentation. Make sure that everyone's there on time. If you have a 6 o'clock practice and people are showing up at 6:01 or 6:05, it sets you back. Ideally, everyone is there by 5:55 so that you can start stretches and warm-ups right on time. Make sure that they're there on time. If anyone shows up late, push them off to the side and have them warm up on their own so that you can keep practice on time. You can minimize chaos and wasted time by using cones or other items to keep the practices organized and on time. Here's some of the resources I mentioned. We do have our website, northlakell.org. We did just launch a YouTube channel, which has a number of videos that we've posted from our partners at EL1, Craig Bishop, and some of their other coaches there have walked through some hitting tutorials and pitching tutorials. Those are all available at the North Lake Little League YouTube site. We're working on loading more information out there as well. There's hyperlinks in this presentation, which I'll send out as well. You can get the game forms here that I mentioned previously. Myself and other board members can be resources at any time. Our email addresses are all available at the North Lake Little League website. I'm going to pull up that website really quick so everyone is familiar with it. This is where you went to register your kids to play, so you should be familiar. It's got the forms that you need. You can access the rules here in the coaches coordinator. This is I frequently use this supplemental rules when I need to get clarity on one of the rules for one of the divisions that my kids are in. Just a few other links that go directly to Little League. YouTube, again, Ultimate Baseball Training is one of my favorite channels. Just search up Ultimate Baseball Training. And there's tons of great videos there with skills training and other practice plan suggestions as well. So that's kind of the basic logistics for how to get the season started. I'm going to go into some individual items here, start with field preparations. If you've been in the league before, you know what's involved here, but primarily at our 4 main fields, which is Bastyr University, Forest Green, Moreland, and Logan Park, we are responsible for field prep. And that means setup of the field, which includes putting the bases in there, raking, chalking, and then post game, which means tear down, making sure the shed's locked up, dragging the field when you're done. This is our responsibility as a league. We don't have turf fields like some of the surrounding areas, so we do have a lot of work that we need to do on our field. Matt Morovich is our fields VP. He is responsible for all 4 of these fields. He's responsible for making sure that there's stuff in the shed that you guys need. The field day, where if you aren't familiar with how to do this, the field day is set up for Saturday, March 19th. Every team must send at least 1 rep. Again, you should find 2 or 3 people that are willing to do this for you, so that when you're trying to do team warm-ups before a game or a team talk at the end of the game, you don't have to worry about getting the field prep done. The home team is responsible for preparing the infield, and the visiting team is responsible for tear down at the end. If it's an interleague game for the older divisions, which are interleaguing this year against North Shore or North Bothell or Woodinville, if we have an away game, they take care of all of the field prep before and after the game. But if we're hosting them, it's our responsibility to do the field prep both before and after the game. So plan accordingly if we have a home game for interleague. And if you're the last practice or game of the day, please make sure that you lock the sheds and make sure that you have raked the field. Don't assume that there is another game after you. Even if you're done at noon on a Saturday, don't assume that there's another game coming. We have had issues with fields not being raked, and then it rains that night and puddles make it unplayable for the next day or 2. We've had issues with people leaving sheds unlocked and discovering the next day that the sheds are open and perhaps there are things missing. So please make sure if there is no other team there ready to start after you, make sure that you lock up the shed and drag the fields. If there is a team there after you, make sure you talk with that coach and understand if they are going to use the shed or use the field that you're on. And then make sure, of course, that we clean up all garbage, not just the team that's doing tear down, but have the kids empty all of the cups and any other trash that's in the dugout. Matt will go over all of this at field day, but just a quick reminder on a few items. If you're at Bastyr, use the Cocoa Mat. Cocoa Mat is a soft rug-like mat that will help avoid rocks coming up at Bastyr. It's a good idea if you're at Bastyr to have kids go out before a game and have everyone pick up 10 rocks out of the infield. It's just the nature of the soil in the area that we live in. In the other fields, use whichever drag is in the shed. It's usually a metal steel drag, but make sure that you drag after practice every night. If there's a puddle, don't try to sweep it away. We have puddle pillows, and when you use a puddle pillow, please make sure you hang it back up. If we have wet puddle pillows just sitting in the shed or sitting outside, they will not dry and they will not be usable. Don't drag on the grass, and please especially make sure that you replace the base caps before you drag so that we don't fill in the pegs with dirt. Makes it easier for the next team. And then rake the low areas, which usually occur around the pitcher's mound and in the batter's boxes, but try to level those out as much as possible. And when you drag, start from the outside, go in a rotating a circular fashion to the inside. We don't want to start on the inside and go out because that then pushes dirt away from the inside. We want to keep as much dirt on the field as possible. Slides we'll talk about, I'm not going to go into detail, but these are just for your reference. You'll learn about this at field day, but these are the ways to set up the fields. Just a note, if you are at one of the elementary schools, Lockwood, Kenmore, Arrowhead, Frank Love, Shelton View, these are just dirt fields. There's no setup or tear down required. You should have throw down bases that you can use at the fields, but there's no pegs, there's no drags. These are just basically sand lots for you to have a practice. Here's some important numbers regarding fields. So these are all the rainout numbers on the left-hand side. They're usually updated the day of. Sometimes if you may not find out until 3 or 4 o'clock if your field is closed, so stay in contact with your team as the day goes on. In the event of inclement weather. And then on the right-hand side, I'll provide this as part of an email, but I did not want to share this since this video will be shared publicly. But these will be the combinations for all of the sheds at any of the parks where you might have games, practices, or scrimmages. Scheduling. So I know everyone's anxious to get started with scheduling. This year we have around 50 teams. We may actually exceed 50 teams, and we may have a record number of registrants in North Lake Little League. Mandy Nair is our league president. She's also our scheduler. If you know anybody that wants to be scheduler so that Mandy doesn't have to pull double duty, please let us know. Dylan Mason has been helping us with scheduling the lower level divisions as well. Their email addresses are there. We do ask if you're given a field and it's not rained out, please have practice. Especially if it's a turf field. These fields are very expensive. Nearly 50% of our costs every year go into renting fields, especially if you're at North Creek. Even if it's raining, please do everything you can to go have practice. If you're at one of the elementary schools, typically there is an overhang. I know that Lockwood, Frank Love, and Shelton View all have nice overhang areas. Arrowhead as well. I think Kenmore does too, where you can go and at least play some catch, do some wiffle ball, roll some grounders, something underneath underneath the awning. But keep in mind, Mandy and Dylan are going to do everything they can to meet your requests. But if we have 5 people requesting for scrim at 5 p.m. on Wednesdays, it's just not going to be possible. So please be flexible, be nice, be patient. Trying to manage team counts, 50 schedules of 50 teams, plus our interleague requirements is very challenging. But please do respond quickly. When the scheduler offers you a field, please make sure that you respond as quickly as possible. And then sometimes field access is even out of our control. We compete with other sports from time to time. Usually in the spring, baseball gets precedent, but especially at North Creek, we compete against lacrosse and soccer and other leagues as well, Woodinville and Bothell. So please be patient, but help us out by being responsive as much as you can. And then if you do need to have a makeup game or a practice, please try to use your normal practice time. Invite the team to come join you at your practice time for a makeup game, because it can be challenging with all the things going on to find a makeup time that works for both of you and works for the field availability. Safety. So safety, our safety officer this year is Richard Grant. His email address is there. There are some safety forms online that I mentioned early on. There's also, you'll be getting a first aid kit when you do your equipment pickup, which I'll talk about a little bit later. You'll be getting all of these items in there. We also put extra instant ice packs at each of the sheds. So there should be some at Bastyr, Forest Glen, and Moreland. And then you'll also get a set of COVID supplies, and this is mainly just hand sanitizer, some extra face masks, and some disinfectants, particularly if you're going to be sharing catcher's gear, catcher's masks. It may be just a good idea to wipe that down in between uses. We do have virtual safety training where we'll go over this in much more detail. Again, we're splitting it into the younger divisions, which will focus more on, trying what to do in the event of a kid getting injured. That'll be from 7 to 8 p.m. on March 7th. And from 8 to 9:15, we'll do the drafted divisions. That might actually run to 9:30 actually. And that will focus a lot more on arm health and trying to make sure that kids are not wearing their arms out, what to look for in that situation. More items here, that we'll talk about at the safety training, but making sure that the bats are legal, make sure that the protective equipment, particularly helmets and catcher's gear, have not been altered. No jewelry, no gum, no seeds, no tobacco, no alcohol, obviously. Typically, most of the fields don't allow dogs. You will see dogs from time to time at some of the fields, but it's recommended not to bring your dog. The last thing we want is a dog bite situation happening. And then, especially for the younger divisions, kids, parents should not be dropping off their kids. They should be staying at the games, at the practices, or at least arranging carpool where there's a buddy system where there's one parent that knows every kid. Don't do one-on-one trips to the bathroom. Make sure kids aren't running into the woods. Just make sure that you have at least 2 adults with a kid. We don't do on-deck hitters. Bats should not be handled in the dugout. They should be hung on the dugout or placed on the fence. Make sure that all hitting drills are supervised. Bats should not be in the air. Make sure helmets are being worn at all times. Throwing, without exception, someone is going to take a ball in the face in one of the first practices. Feel free to start with tennis balls or cushion balls. We do use T-balls, which are very soft for the T-ball division, and safety 5 balls for some of the younger divisions as well. And then try to use cones or other lined methods to keep kids separated between drills. We'll go over the rest of this at safety training, so I won't dwell on it here. We'll move into fundraising and sponsorship. Our registration fees only cover about 70% of our operating expenses every year. So we do rely heavily on fundraising and sponsorship. Each team should identify a fundraising coordinator, somebody that can handle Family Fun Day, which includes putting together a gift basket for a volunteer for a silent auction. It includes team photos, which we do get a portion of the proceeds for team photos. And then there will be some other fundraising activities planned that day. This slide is from last year. There was no Family Fun Day in 2021. There will be one in 2022 that is scheduled for, I believe that says May 15th, but I believe it's going to be May 14th, which is Saturday. So it should be May 14th. That's a typo. I mentioned we do have several board positions that remain open for 2022 or the 2022 season. Again, this slide is from last year, but 2022 and 2023, even more will be opening. If you are interested and able to commit some of your time, it would be much appreciated. And then one thing that a lot of people don't know is if you work some corporations, Microsoft and Boeing, for example, they will match your time as coaches, umpires, scorekeeping, anything you're doing to giving back to the Little League. They will match those funds hour for hour. So if you aren't sure, ask your HR or your employer and find out if they do matching gifts, because a lot of our funds will come from volunteer matching hours. Little League Day was canceled last year at the Mariners game, but we do have it this year, assuming the Major League Baseball season starts on time. The date's TBD, but again, this is a great way to get your team out for a good team building activity, and it's also a great fundraiser for North Lake Little League. Equipment. Christian Conrad is our hard goods and equipment coordinator. He will provide gear to you or a representative from your team on Sunday, March 6th from 2 to 4 p.m. at Kenmore Self-Storage. I have a couple of slides in here that I'm not going to go into detail, but it will tell you what is going to be included in your pack. You are responsible for picking this gear up and returning it in good condition. Every year, our board members spend hours and hours cleaning out dirt and trash out of gear bags. We just ask that before you return it, spend 15 minutes, dump it out, hose off the catcher's gear and dry it out. We've just purchased, I think, 30 new sets of catcher's gear this year. It gets weathered pretty quickly in Seattle in March and April. If you can give it a wipe down after every muddy practice and game, it would be much appreciated. And also, if you have any unused all-weather blue lace balls for those are hard balls for AAA minors and majors, as well as the upper levels of softball, we'd ask that you would return those for the end of the year. We don't need any of the safety balls returned if they're used. If they're unused, we would ask that those be returned with the gear bag. But even usable balls, if they're slightly used and you don't need them, we'd ask that those be returned. We can use them next year for tryouts and some of our other preseason activities. I won't go through this in detail. I'll hold it up here on pause for about 30 seconds so that you can take a look at it. But these are the gear that you can expect for each division. When you get into majors and minors in the upper level divisions, you will typically, usually you'll only get a gear bag with balls, maybe a couple of other things upon request, maybe one set of catcher's gear. But for the lower level divisions, you'll get more things like throw down bases because you'll be at elementary schools typically for practices. You'll get tees. We are not doing catchers this year for T-ball or rookies. We just don't have enough serviceable gear for those divisions. Again, on softball, I'll just pause for a minute. Okay, we'll move on to umpires. Again, as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, umpires are kind of the most difficult role to fill, but the games don't happen without them. We do have updated training rules and training packages coming. We're going to have some online virtual training regarding the rules, and then we'll have mechanics training in person. All that information will be coming out soon. Again, if you are at an umpire level division, you probably want to get at least 3 volunteers. You're going to get a main umpire that maybe can't attend all the games, so you need to have backups at all these divisions. It doesn't have to be a parent. It can be an older high school level sibling. It could be an aunt, an uncle, a friend, a neighbor, anybody that can pass a background check and has some knowledge and willingness to learn the game. We've got to have them. At each division, the home team will provide the home plate umpire, except at Sluggers, there is no home plate umpire, and the visiting team will provide the field umpire. We have all the gear. We provide it. We provide the training, hats, shirts, protective gear. So tell the parents to get involved so that we can have the games. I'll do one little plug for All-Stars as well. Last year as a league, we didn't do a great job of advertising for All-Stars, and we actually weren't able to even field a couple of teams. This year, our goal is to get back and fielding every single team we possible. We field multiple teams for softball and baseball. We have a juniors team. We have a little league, which is a age 12 team typically. Then we have an 11U and a 10U team in both baseball and softball. The district tournaments typically start in early July, and the state tournaments will end in late July if you're fortunate enough to make it to the state tournament. Practices and scrimmages will start pretty much the day after Little League ends, and they will go nearly every day up through June, and then up until the All-Star tournament starts in July. So you should communicate at your parent meeting. This is, again, primarily for majors and minors baseball, majors and AAA softball. and juniors baseball and softball. Typically, you're at a division below that, players won't be playing all-stars. But for the older divisions, if your families might be interested, they're going to be asked to sign a commitment form in mid-April, I believe April 18th, if they want to be considered for part of All-Stars. And if they do want to be considered, they should not plan to take any vacations until August. Obviously, missing a day here and there is going to be fine. People are going to need a break. It's a very rigorous routine, but it is a lot of fun, and it's a big commitment. So families should understand what the commitment is. Rosters will be chosen by managers at each division in early May and announced in mid to late May. And again, it'll start right after Tournament of Champions is completed. So that ends the basic informational session. From here, I'm going to go into the rules of each group. I'm going to start at the older divisions, move down to the younger divisions of baseball, and then go into softball. So in majors baseball, the supplemental rules, I'm going to start with the minimum playing time requirements. Every player is required to play at least 9 defensive outs. That's 3 innings. And 3 innings in the infield. I strongly encourage everyone that this should actually be 12 and 6. At this age, there is really no reason why every player shouldn't get 2 innings in the infield and 4 innings. If you have a couple of players getting only 3 innings playing in the field, that means other players are getting 5 and 6 innings every single game, and that doesn't do anybody any good. So Little League International actually only requires 6 innings, 6 outs, 2 innings, which in my mind is ridiculous. You should really be going for balanced playing time, equal playing time at majors. Same thing for minors. Minors actually requires 6 outs in the infield or 2 innings. But again, only 9 outs total defensively. Again, I think this should be 12. But no player can sit more than 1 consecutive inning. So technically you could have a player that's playing in the 1st inning, the 3rd inning, and the 5th inning, and they meet all of these requirements. But again, I recommend you get them in the field 4 to 5 times per game. The district is reviewing some requirements that may change this from required to recommended. But at North Lake Little League, we will require this. No player should be playing less than this in any one game. You can find a link to the supplemental rules here on our website. We'll go over a few of the main rules here, but no inning may start after 2 hours. That's actually 2 hours and 15 minutes for the playoff. But if there's a tie and there's enough light and the field is available, the game can be continued. During the regular season, we do keep score. There is a winner and a loser, but there's no records. Records don't play into the final standings. So please make sure you're staying safe and you're being respectful to the people that are behind you waiting for the field. No game should go beyond 3 hours. And no inning shall start after 8:15 p.m. in a non-lighted field. Minors does have a 5-run rule per inning, except in the 6th inning, you can go beyond that or in extra innings, and there is no mercy rule. The majors, in majors baseball, there is no run rule per inning, but if one team is leading by 10 or more runs at the completion of 4 innings, or more innings, the game will be conceded to the team that is leading. I don't recommend we do this during the regular season. You may as well get 6 innings in if you can and get the reps in. But during playoffs and Tournament of Champions, there is the mercy rule of 10 runs. Some of the most commonly overlooked rules for pitch limits, especially over multiple games. If a pitcher has thrown 40 pitches, they cannot go to play catcher. And observe the minimum playing time requirements that we've already spoke about. Runner interference or fielder obstruction are both rules that we do follow. The umpires will know that, but make sure that your runners know that they can't go out of their way to run into a fielder, and the fielders need to give right away to the runners, except when fielding a ball. The infield fly rule does apply at both divisions, and an uncaught third strike, or dropped third as it's more commonly known, it does apply at majors. So on strike 3, whether it's swung or looking, if the catcher does not catch the ball and first base is unoccupied, or if first base is occupied and there are 2 outs, the hitter may run to first base. Runners must slide or attempt to avoid the tag without going out of the baseline. And coaches or managers, adults, are not allowed to warm up a pitcher at home plate or in the bullpen or anywhere else. This is a safety issue. Players are covered by the league insurance. Coaches are not. So make sure that you have a catcher that's able to warm up a pitcher in full gear if your other catcher is not ready to play. Some sportsmanship notes. This applies to majors, minors, and really AAA as well, in some extent. Well, actually not AAA. We have another slide on AAA, but for majors and minors, slug bunts, which are technically legal, but for our district, they're actually not allowed, whether it's written or unwritten. A slug bunt is where you fake a bunt and then proceed to swing. Once you go down to bunt, the fielders at the corners are going to start charging in. And if the player hits the blind drive at a charging player, it's a major safety issue. So please do not do this. Attentional walks are also allowed, but highly discouraged. We want to give all the players a chance here. Please do not intentionally walk anyone at any time during any game. And if the score gets out of hand, dial it back a little bit on the base stealing, dial it back on maybe you don't throw your ace out there in the 5th inning if you're up by 10 runs. Try to get that, use that as an opportunity to get some people an opportunity to pitch. And pitcher rotation. Majors and minors, everyone's going to have 2 or 3 really great pitchers. From 2014 to 2017, which was actually before my time at this division, I'm told players that were used to a significant amount to their game maximum prior to May 1st were burnout, arm health issues, little league elbow, fatigue, were unable to pitch during All-Stars. So I've got some things that later on that we'll talk about for pitch counts, but please use a solid rotation, give everybody a chance to pitch, especially early in the season. And arguing balls and strikes with the umpire is strictly forbidden. Certainly there are going to be calls that you can question and ask for clarification on. Balls and strikes are not one of them. Have the umpire inform you of their strike zone prior to the game in a plate meeting. So pitch limits. I won't read this off, but each age group has their own pitch limits per day, and then there's associated days rest with each pitch count. So if a player throws 51 pitches on Wednesday and they have a game on Saturday, they are not eligible to pitch that game on Saturday. The district has also adopted a rule this year for majors and minors players, and this will actually apply to AAA as well for the 9 and 10-year-olds there. No more than 50 pitches per game prior to May 1st. For new managers, one of the most difficult things to explain is actual versus declared pitches. And this was created primarily to avoid having pitchers have to quit pitching in the middle of an at-bat. So actual pitches are the actual number of pitches thrown by a pitcher. Declared is the total number of pitches when a pitcher has thrown the first pitch to the last batter that they're facing. And this is the number that's used to determine the number of pitches thrown and the number of days rest. So let me give you an example. A 9-year-old has thrown 72 pitches and he begins to throw, which I think is too many, by the way. He begins to throw to one final hitter, but he throws 8 pitches in that at bat. So his actual number of pitches thrown is 72 plus 8, which is 80, which he would have exceeded his number of pitches thrown. But his declared pitches is 72 plus the first pitch he threw to that last batter. So his declared pitches will be 73. And that is the number you report to the league. At the end of the day, he will have not exceeded his match pitch count. He will have still 4 days of rest. But if his actual pitches was, say, 52, for example, and his declared pitches was 49, he would only need 2 days of rest instead of 3, because his declared pitches would be 49. And if you have any questions about this, I can explain this in a little bit more detail. So for AAA, actually one other thing before I move on, that we are going to have a spreadsheet that we use to track pitchers' pitch counts throughout the year. And we're putting the onus upon the majors and minors managers to make sure that those pitch counts don't run up substantially this year. If you have somebody that is got 100 more pitches thrown than anyone else on your team, and by on May 1st, we're going to recommend that you dial that back down a little bit. Give other pitchers a chance to opportunity, and give that kid a chance to rest so that he's available for you deep into Tournament of Champions and an All-Stars. For AAA, this is not a recommendation. This is a requirement that every player must play at least 3 innings, at least 4 innings in the field, and at least 2 innings in the infield. They cannot sit in consecutive innings. But one caveat for this division is because early in the season, especially, you're going to have trouble getting a full game in of 6 innings. You may only get 4 innings in. This infield requirement applies for the first 4 innings. So in the first 4 innings, everyone on your team must have played at least 2 innings in the infield. And that includes pitcher, catcher, first base, second base, shortstop, and third base, any of those positions. Supplemental rules are very similar in terms of gameplay, but games shall not go beyond 2 hours and 30 minutes, even if there's no game after you. So here's where some of the tricky rules come in for AAA. Kids are pitching, but once they throw 4 balls, instead of that being a walk, a coach will come in and pitch to finish the at-bat. And that coach can throw up to 3 pitches. If all 3 of those pitches are way outside or in the dirt or over the hitter's head, it doesn't matter, that the hitter is ruled out. So find a pitcher that can throw strikes. Find a coach pitcher that can throw strikes, I should say. The coach is not pitching from 15 feet from the home plate, throwing dart throws. They're pitching actual pitches from right in front of the pitcher's mound. So it's about 40 feet from home plate. Again, find somebody that can throw strikes. Find a coach that can throw strikes. When the coach pitcher is out there, the pitcher will simply move to the left or right of the mound, about 3 to 6 feet offset from the mound, and about 4 feet behind the mound. You don't want them standing up there right next to the coach that's pitching. We say in general, we should look to reward the defense when a play is close or in question. So tie usually goes to the runner, but we encourage the umpires to be a little bit more favor of the defense, because it is at this age still developmental and difficult oftentimes to get players out. Yeah, we don't encourage what this next rule about intent of pitcher control. Once the ball's back to the pitcher, runners should not be attempting to continue to advance. So if a guy has a single, the ball goes back to the pitcher's walking back to the mound but not paying attention, we don't want that runner running to second base. That doesn't really help anybody, doesn't help development, doesn't do anybody any good. When the pitcher has the ball, the play is over. Stealing. A player may only steal second base in the case of a passed ball that goes completely behind the catcher. If it's not caught or is blocked, that does not count. The ball has to actually go behind the catcher and the umpire for it to be considered a pass ball, and in that case, the player can steal second base. But they can steal second to third anytime. If you have a good catcher and a decent third baseman, they're probably going to throw that kid out. But there's no stealing on the throw back to the pitcher. It has to be a straight steal either on a pass ball or when the ball crosses home plate. There is no stealing home at any time. And there's no extra stealing after a throw. So if you steal second base, the catcher throws the ball to second base, it goes past the second baseman, you don't steal third as well. You stay. It's only one base on a steal. We are attempting to try to teach the kids how the game is going to be played. One base per overthrow. So if you have a ground ball to the pitcher, he overthrows it to first base, the hitter may advance to second base, but not to third base. There is a 5-run rule limit for each inning, except once you get to the last inning, you can hit through the order instead. And if you have 12 players on your team, the most you'll probably score in that situation is up to 7 runs. But typically, 5-run rule limit is what we observe. Agree on what this looks like at a plate meeting. Early in the year, it's going to be very difficult to get more than 2 hours in. If you have a Wednesday night game that starts at 6 p.m., it's going to get dark and we don't have lights on our fields. So have a plate meeting and agree on when you're going to determine the last inning. As you may agree that once you hit 7:30 p.m., that will be their last inning. And if you decide that's the case, then you can turn off the run rule at that time. Again, pitch counts, some of the most overlooked, misunderstood rules. We talked about this one already. Some of these already, not the first one though. The first one is in AAA, no player may pitch more than 2 innings. That's 6 defensive outs. So even if you have your ace in there and they've only thrown 20 pitches, they've gotten through 2 innings, that's it. And what we want to do, why we do this, we want to avoid having that ace pitcher that can just go in there and bowl over everybody, maybe throw strikes all the time, maybe throws 10 miles per hour faster than everybody in the league. We want balance, we want development. So no pitcher in any situation, even in playoffs, can throw more than 6 defensive outs. No pitcher may throw 40 pitches and then go to catcher. And then no player may pitch an inning and then go to a different position, including bench, and then go pitch again. So once they've pitched, they're done pitching for the day. The minimum playing time requirements that we talked about apply. Again, 5-run rule per inning, but no mercy rule. And then no managers warming up players. Only players wearing a mask can warm up pitchers. Game reports are required for all divisions in baseball, from AAA up to majors. And that means at the end of every game, the home team is going to submit a game report. And the game report will state the final score, the number of innings defended, and then it'll say who pitched and who caught and what innings they pitched and what their pitch counts were. So in this case, Letterman pitched. He's 8 years old. He threw 20 actual pitches, 18 declared pitches, and then it automatically tells you the next available day for this pitcher. So this game was on April 3rd. This pitcher is available to pitch on April 4th. This pitcher is available to pitch on April 5th. And then it also talks about who the catchers were. And this is to make sure that nobody threw more than 40 pitches and then went to play catcher. I need the reports sent to myself, the coaches coordinator, as well as every other coach in the division, including the team that you played. It should be submitted within 24 hours so that we don't forget. So at the end of the game, you should be exchanging pitch counts with the other team. And then for interleague games, I'm asking the coach to submit the game report, whether you're home or away. And then for AAA majors and minors, we're going to track season-long pitch counts at this link here, which is a Google form where we'll track pitch counts for every player in the league so that we can understand more about if anyone's having arm health issues at the end of the year. We'll move into the lower divisions now for sluggers. If you've played T-ball or rookies in the past, it's pretty similar, except we are actually recording outs now. The visiting team will provide the visiting team will provide a field umpire to call outs and safe on the bases, but there are no balls and strikes except swinging strikes, so there is no plate umpire. When 3 outs are recorded or 5 runs are recorded in an inning, that half inning is over, or until the entire batting order has hit, whichever comes first. There is no final score kept. There is no winning team or losing team. We only keep score per inning, so we know when the 5 runs has ended. We don't use a T like in rookies, so the batter is out after the 3rd swinging strike or the 6th pitch. So if, again, this is another division where you need to have a coach that can throw strikes. If he throws 6 pitches over the batter's head, the batter is out. You've got to be able to find a way to throw 4 or 5 out of 6 pitches close to the strike zone. 3 swinging strikes is an out, where the 6th pitch, unless it's a foul ball, is also an out. Maximum 10 players on defense at a time. Really, we'd like to see that be 9, but if you have 10 players exactly, go ahead and play with 4 outfielders. Coaches are allowed in the field as long as you aren't interfering with play. Typically, that means 1 to 2 coaches in the outfield, sort of directing traffic. The coaches will pitch from a knee, approximately 30 feet from the plate. If you have kids that are hitting really well, you can back it up a little bit. We do draw a 15-foot arc in front of the plate. That will be considered a foul ball if it does not travel past that point. That's to avoid just a bunch of short hits where there's no chance of the catcher or the pitcher making an out. On a batted ball, runners should advance just 1 base. Once you get later in the season, if coaches agree, you can go for doubles if the ball goes into the outfield untouched. We're not taking bases on overthrows. We're not turning infield singles into doubles. Just simply if the kid has a good hit, you want to reward that with a double. And you should be rotating positions and batting orders frequently throughout the games and throughout the day. That's the basic rules for sluggers. T-ball and rookies, all the rules are exactly the same, except T-ball uses a T, and rookies does not use a T except after 6 pitches, 5 to 6 pitches. You can put all the players out on defense, up to 7 players on the infield, but avoid dog piles. If kids are all running for the ball and jumping on top of each other, spread them out more. Coaches should be on the field helping direct traffic. Encourage proper spacing, like I mentioned, to avoid dog piles. If you need to pull bases into 50-foot, you can, but that just brings fielders closer, so I don't recommend it. I recommend going with the 60-foot bases. Again, you draw the 15-foot arc in front of home plate to ensure players are getting a chance to hit the ball far enough and players in the field are getting a chance to play defense. This division, again, one base on the hit. We're not advancing on overthrows. Rotate your batting order. You can even rotate positions every inning. We're going to bat around the order. So if you have 12 kids on your team and they're all batting, that can get pretty boring for the kid that's playing right field. So have them play 5 batters in the outfield and then swap your infielders and outfielders and have them so that each inning they're getting time in the infield. Pitcher, first base, those guys are going to get the most action. So make sure that you don't have somebody playing those positions more than 4 or 5 outs per game. You're probably only going to get 2, 3, if you're lucky, 4 innings in an hour and 15-minute game, especially early in the season. We expect the season to start shortly before spring break. We're still discussing what the game format looks like. We may do a practice game hybrid where you come and you do a 30-minute practice and a 30-minute game. We're also looking at a possibility of incorporating something called quick ball this year, which I'll provide more details for at a later date. For rookies, T-ball is obviously all out of the tee. The coach will be there just putting balls on the tee. For rookies, a coach will pitch from a knee about 30 feet away. And then if the player struggles to hit after 5 to 6 pitches, you'll bring the tee out and let them finish the at-bat on the tee. That's it for T-ball and rookies. For softball, these are some rules that apply for all levels of softball. I am not a softball expert, so I recommend contacting Mike Spring. He's our softball VP if you have very specific questions about softball. But softball at all divisions is a co-league run throughout the district. So even at single A, double A, you'll be playing teams from other districts. There are specific softball umpire training that those dates will come out soon. Every team will need an umpire. The softball rules, the specific rules will be sent out by Mike and posted on our website here shortly. There's going to be a softball managers meeting, which will typically held on or around March 15th. They'll talk through what all the supplemental rules are and answer any questions at that time. And then regardless of the minimum playing time that's specified in the district rules, this is the same as with baseball. Northlake expects coaches to do their best to offer equal playing time during the regular season. We don't keep record of wins and losses during the regular season, just like in baseball. The TOC will be for a random draw, so there's no incentive for winning during the regular season. Some of the specific rules for each division here: junior softball, players can steal lead off when the pitcher releases the ball, but leaving the base early results in an out. And the district TOC will be held at the end of the season. Major softball, exactly the same there as the juniors. There's a TOC at the end of the season, and then the North End winners, that's the winners of North Bothell, North Lake, North Shore, and Woodinville will play the winner of the City League at University of Washington. AAA softball players can lead or steal off only once the ball reaches the batter. Leaving the base early results in an out. And again, same thing as majors with the North End TOC and a game against the City League. In AA softball, there is no stealing. The first 2 innings will be coach pitch to keep the game moving and get the kids excited. And then the final 4 innings, if there's time, will be kid pitch. For single A softball, it's coach pitch only. There's no tee. It's sort of like rookies, but no tee, just to get the girls a chance to hit off of coach pitch. And then you'll define the defensive rotation. Players will put in the rotation and they rotate each inning per the defined play. Again, Mike can provide more details on that. But here's a link to the supplemental rules from the league. That's really all I have. There's a couple other resources that I will provide everyone with. One is the game report, which I'll share now. I shared an excerpt of that, but here's an example from last year. That's pretty simple. You'll put in the player's number. Again, this is for ages. This is for baseball AAA, baseball minors, baseball majors. You'll put in the player's number. You'll put in their age, the number of actual pitches, and the number of declared pitches. This number is used to automatically calculate these 2 fields. And then you can also include their last name for convenience of the other teams. You'll also load the game. Everything in green here is what you want to modify. So the game date, the 2 teams, the score, the innings defended, and the location. And then at the very bottom, there's a place to put if minimum playing time was not met. I've very rarely used this. The only time I would use this is if a player had to leave a game early because of a conflict, or if there was an injury and the player had to come out of the game. But that's the only time that you would use that. The other thing that I'll provide you with is a tool that will help you manage your game and your lineup, and you're certainly welcome to use anything you want, but this tool I've been using since the coaches coordinator gave it to me in 2016, and it's a really helpful tool. Just bear with me here while I pull it up. I thought I had it up already. I've added a bunch of different tabs to this, but I'll send you the simplified version. But it's It's a tool that has a bunch of formulas built in where you can put in, here's what my batting order is. Here's the player's number. Here's the player's age. And there's formulas in here that'll actually rotate your batting order throughout the year. So you can just move players by one position every game to give everyone a chance to bat first, everyone a chance to bat last, etc. And then here you'll load in their numbers and their names. And in each game you can put in their number and it'll put their positions and tell you if you're meeting the required minimum playing time required. So you can see here, this player is going to get 3 infield innings, 1 outfield inning, 2 bench innings. So he's meeting the minimum playing time requirement. This player is getting 2 infield inning, 3 outfield inning, and 1 bench inning. So he's also meeting his minimum playing time requirement. If I take number 12 out of a couple of his innings, it's going to tell me to fix it. He's not getting enough innings in the field. That's pretty cool. And then the other thing it does is it'll just automatically generate this page. Oops. Which I can print out for the dugout, and I can print out for the opposing manager. And this tells me exactly what I'm doing. He can take a look at it and make sure that I'm meeting my minimum playing time requirement for the AAA, which is in the first 4 innings. And like I said, I've used this tool since day one. I really like it. And so I will send out a blank copy to all the managers. Last thing I mentioned is here in the back, I've got this volunteer checklist. You can print one of these out and take it to your team meeting. A sample practice plan on how I utilize Forsgren, Bastyr, Morelands. You can use the infield in here for some infield drills. You can use the fence over here for some hitting tee drills, soft toss. Use the fence over here for some pitching drills, throwing, catching, and then make a second infield here for some base running, or do some outfield drills out here. I have tons of sample practice plans that I can provide if you'd like. Happy to do it. Here's a simple practice plan here, some stations, and that's it. So if you have any questions, again, please email me at coaches@northlakell.org, or you can attend one of our in-person trainings on March 5th at Kenmore Lanes. Other than that, I plan to have this posted on YouTube, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.